Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Since President Trump returned to the White House, illegal border crossings have plummeted, and yet there is resistance to the Trump administration's efforts to deport even criminal migrants from our country. So where is this battle headed? Well, joining us now to talk about this and so much more is someone who knows a lot about the border and the migrant crisis, Todd Bensman, who is a media commentator, a longtime reporter, and also a fellow with the Center for Immigration Studies. Todd, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
What do you attribute this enormous drop in illegal crossings to? Is it just a will at the White House all the way, top down?
Yes, that. And, this was always a matter of about an hour to shut the border down. This was never complicated. We didn't need to have a Langford Senate bill. The Senate bill everybody was always talking about during the Harris campaign. If only we had the Senate bill, we could close the border down, or comprehensive immigration reform and, root causes. We've got to address the root causes by rebuilding all these other nations. So none of that was necessary. All that was necessary was to deport, detain, and expel, not necessarily in that order, and not release anybody into the country. That was it. So that happened on Inauguration Day at about noon plus 1 minute. And I attribute that it was pretty much over right then and there to the policy switches.
Also, obviously, this is something he campaigned on, too. I mean, clearly, if you look at the polls, this is what the American public wanted.
Right. And it was just so easy. It was always so easy. Biden could have done any of these things at any point, but instead he allowed his people to release almost everybody they caught into the interior. So, of course, millions came to take advantage of that. It was never out of control or something that it was just happening to us, bad things in the world or whatever. It was just simply you either let them in or you don't let them in.
Yeah, isn't it? It's amazing how simple, like you just said, right? It was just simple. A simple message. And yet, are you astounded how much damage that President Biden and his team did, that there wasn't this will? I mean, it's almost unconscionable, Todd, that someone who's an American president would have that policy. You and I know so many different countries around the world. They would never allow it.
No, nobody does this. This was a once in a human history human experiment that they did, and they did it with us, our country. Decided to just let everybody in, no matter what. Within a day or two, you reach the border, you're in Chicago or New York or whatever. And it was just some ideological, political experiment that they allowed to have happen. It was predicted that if they followed through on their policies, that this would happen before they did it. And they did it anyway. And they did it very well, I might add. It was very carefully engineered. They knew they had lawyers working full-time, full blast, knowing exactly what buttons to push and how to change the system, dismantle the system in a way that would enhance the most possible illegal immigration that they could do. And they did it for as long as they could, right up until they had to campaign for re-election in 2024. And then they did a couple of things that slowed it down. But by then, 12 million people were in.
You talked about it being an ideological experiment. I agree. Do you think there were also other reasons? I mean, did anybody ever sort of reveal to you, hey, maybe this helps with the census? Maybe it helps with, because it's almost so inconceivable that they would have allowed it. Was there some ulterior motive?
Well, the people that they brought into the Biden administration that came in on day one were from the non-governmental organizations that specialize in migration, in refugee resettlement and migrant resettlement. And those organizations profit by volume. The more volume you have, the more they profit. And they were the ones who engineered this whole thing. They were put in charge of the immigration portfolio, and they were allowed to just run with their heads on it. And I think that we will be finding out in the next few years as investigations happen exactly, how much profit they reaped from this thing. And I think that we all know already that, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts and grants went to those NGOs to manage the problem that they engineered. And that's what happened. I think it was a money thing. And maybe the demographics and the vote were, for Democrats, like at some future point, was a cherry on top. But I think ultimately this was about short-term profit for the NGOs.
Wow. And who were some of the biggest? I mean, it seemed like there were even folks of faith who were playing a big role in this.
Well, there are hundreds of them. Yes, there were. Of course, every faith is represented. Everybody's got their NGOs that do refugee resettlement and migration and all that on both sides of the border. Catholic Charities. There were Jewish groups like HIAS, which had Alejandro Mayorkas, DHS secretary, as on its board of directors just before he was appointed. You had the Lutherans, you had the Adventists, you had, the Red Cross, the 15 different UN agencies, hundreds from all around the world got in on the action. And then, inside the United States, you had, food vending companies that sprung up to catch the wind, bus companies, transportation companies, people that, provided legal assistance. And I mean, really everybody, every possible NGO and company you can imagine stood up to get their share of the windfall. And it was massive. It was billions of dollars went into their pockets. I think that's why they did it.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Cadillac Certified Service Fresh Start Tire event. Visit Cadillac.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Wow, that's astounding. To create damage in the country or turn a blind eye for financial gain, that's a stunning comment, too, and commentary by you, because, boy, you think, like as you just talked about, 12. Some people believe it may be as many as 20 million came in under Biden. And there's so many gotaways, right? I mean, we believe there's 2 million gotaways. Those we have no clue of, right?
Yeah, that's why nobody can really get a good handle on how many came in during those 4 years, because there's known gotaways, but then there's this other category called unknown gotaways. And that's kind of, we don't know. I mean, were there hundreds of thousands more that we can presume got into the country and we never, got a picture of them or saw their footprints or whatever? So, I mean, we usually at the center, we go with what we know, which is we think there's probably on the order of 10 to 12 million for sure that were allowed in. I'm not going to say they got in. I'm going to say they were invited in. They were allowed in. I was there. I watched them walk across and be welcomed into the Border Patrol vans and taken into the country.
Wow. What's the reaction from now border agents? Because obviously a whole new sheriff in town. Do they feel like they can finally do their job? Is it sort of breathing a sigh of relief in many ways?
Well, you had Kristen Noem go out recently into the field, and she met with the Border Patrol agents who were on horseback who were accused of whipping Haitian migrants at the Del Rio migrant camp a few years ago, and were absolutely destroyed professionally and personally by the witch hunt that ensued. And of course, none of it was true. It was all a made up hoax. And she apologized on behalf of the government for what had happened to them, what was done to them. And I think that more than anything else shows the, day and night change that has happened. They have full backing to do their jobs, their real jobs, which is to catch and detain, to hunt down, to track, to, protect the country using their badge and guns and brawn and smarts and training. And they're very happy. Everybody in Border Patrol that I've talked to since the election is just beside themselves, ecstatic. The ones that didn't flee the service or get fired for not getting vaccinated, or just from horrible morale of being required to do babysitting duty and processing in duty. So, yeah, it's a really amazing change down there.
And obviously, Tom Homan, too. I mean, that was one of the first things that we heard President Trump bring in. The border czar, Tom Homan, he has certainly changed it around. And also his no-nonsense style, too, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly talking the talk, but he's also walking the walk. He's a cop's cop. He has, been a Border Patrol agent, ran ICE. This guy knows how to deport. That's his thing. And he is going to get mass deportation underway before too much longer here. He's already started. Gotten 50,000 criminal aliens out of the country. Think about that for a minute. A big football stadium filled with criminals. He's already, in a month or so, moved out of the country, out of our communities. 50,000. I mean, some people would be happy with just that, 50,000. But obviously, there's a whole lot more. We think that there's somewhere on the order of 750,000 criminal aliens. But we're going to see, as Americans, we're going to see non-criminal aliens rounded up and also kicked out of the country, where deservedly under law. They're here illegally. They got in, they were let in illegally, and they're here illegally. And I'm sorry, you're going to see lawnmower guys and maids and housekeepers and hotel workers shipped out. That's going to happen too eventually in large numbers.
What do you make of the registry that Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, came up with, saying that everybody, whether you're a maid or a CEO, whoever you are, you got to register if you're here illegal? And how many people do you think will actually do that?
Well, I think it's brilliant. It's obvious. It has been tried before. They've done that before. It always runs into political, chainsaws. It has already. There's litigation. There'll be more litigation about it, but I think it'll emerge successful, and it's the best possible thing that you could do, because those who are not registered will be automatically deported. If we find you and you're not in the that's enough right there. And then those who are registered or who do register, we will have a database to check back to see if, how your asylum case came out, how your green card application came out, or whatever it is. So how your parole, whether it ran out after 2 years that we gave you under Biden, those ran out, and what you're doing now. And it's just a way to keep tabs, and it's a way to make sure that there's some accountability.
What about the gold card, which is sort of the souped-up green card? And that was something that even the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, talked about recently, Todd, where he said, look, if you look at all the sort of EB-5s, the people that are applying for those sort of special visas, even if we change it and say, okay, we're getting rid of that, we're going to charge people $5 million. You got to be vetted. You got to be bringing in business and growth to this country. Then he says, he talked about the number. It was quite incredible of how much that would be. If you look at the hundreds that are applying even just now, times 5 million, that might make that criteria. What do you think of that? Is that an interesting idea? I actually added something to it, my thoughts, Todd, that maybe that person, if that person does qualify, vetted, that they should be hired, maybe they should make sure they hire inner city folks or do something that really turbocharges and helps Americans.
Sure. I mean, we've had E and L visas for years, which are similar to this. If you have $500,000 or $1 million to invest in a business here, we'll let you come. That's on the legal side of immigration. What you and I have been talking about so far is strictly the illegal side.
Yep.
But, on the legal side, Trump has always talked about, and a lot of European countries do this, Canada being one of them, Australia, another one, is that, you want to be somewhat selective about who you allow into the club. And, if somebody's got, $5 million and they want to put it in our banks and hire people, that's a pretty good selection, it seems like to me. Maybe they'll buy their way into the country, but that sounds like it's productive, and it adds to what we need to add to the country, as opposed to people pouring over the border who are penniless and go right onto our public welfare systems, into our medical hospital systems, where the taxpayers are paying for all of it, apartments and subsidized everything. That's a big difference. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good idea.
Although you got to make sure it's not somehow tied to cartels, which have a lot of money. I mean, that's where the vetting comes in, right?
Yes, there's got to, yeah, of course. There's got to be that.
Yeah, it's got to be mega vetting, I would assume.
Yes.
One of the things you talked about, because we talked about the deportations, and that's amazing, like you talked about the 50,000 that Tom Homan on the illegal immigration side, that they've deported those who have been here, criminal migrants and the like. There are people who've been crying foul saying, why are they shackled? How could you treat these people like this? You wrote a blockbuster story in the New York Post explaining why. Explain it for our listeners.
Yeah, the entire nation of India and all of its political leadership are up in arms over video showing deported Indians wearing handcuffs and leg irons coming off of these flights. The president of Colombia said, I won't accept these flights. These people are being shackled. This is terrible. And all these human rights groups and everybody's like all verklempt over this. And I wrote that column to say, hey, there's a really good reason for why they're doing that. And it's the 2021 Del Rio migrant camp crisis, when you had 15,000 Haitians pour over the Rio Grande and set up camp on our side. And expecting to be let in. That was under Biden, of course. But it was a political problem just ahead of the midterm elections. So they decided to do air deportations to get rid of everybody, to either scare them back into Mexico or actually remove people back to Haiti. And so they put a bunch of Haitians aboard flights, didn't tell them right away where they were going, but did not restrain them. They rioted at 30,000 feet. They tore up every single thing that they could tear up inside that plane. I mean, seat cushions off, the stuffing out of the seat cushions. The place was completely destroyed by the time, with the pilots cowering inside the cabin. And then when they got on the ground, they kept doing it, and they tried to hijack another plane that had just landed with Haitians on it from Del Rio. And then they tried to hijack more planes that were taking off from Texas. So they figured out, well, maybe we ought to put restraints on these people so that we don't have a riot at 30,000 or attempted hijacking. They were attacking ICE agents, drawing blood, beating them up, demanding. They were taking over buses that were heading to the airport, mutinying, beating up the drivers. And that's why you don't take a chance. And I just wanted to remind people about what happened just a few years ago as a pretty damn good reason to do this, especially if your category of people that you're putting on these flights are criminal aliens, which most of them are right now.
No, that's a great point. And again, where were some of these civil liberties groups when Biden was doing it? Did you hear an outcry then?
No, because it was Biden. There's so much hypocrisy laced into all of this. What's good for you is what's good for me is not good for you, and all that sort of thing. No, of course not. No.
There's word that the Trump administration might try to bring back Title 42. What do you think of that?
Well, what they're using right now is something very similar to it, which is 212F. They don't really need Title 42 unless there's a disease afoot. They have the authority right now to do exactly what Title 42 did, which is to expel at the border everybody that they catch for no reason other than that we want to do it. And to deny them asylum. 212F of the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act, you can Google it. And they're using that right now to expel everybody that they catch. We are not releasing anyone into the interior now. All of them are detained temporarily. If we catch them at the border, anywhere near the border, we detain them and put them back over the bridge under 212F. Now, 212F might get sued on. It has been sued on in recent years. They're using it anyway. But then they have behind that a policy called Remain in Mexico. You might remember that one from Trump 1.0.
Yep.
That one went all the way to the Supreme Court and cleared. It's good to go. And they've invoked that too. You can push anybody and everybody back into Mexico and make them wait for their asylum claim there, which makes them never want to come. No, nobody wants to come unless you're getting released into the U.S. That's the baseline motivation for all of it. If we're releasing you into the country, you're coming. If we're booting you out, you're not coming.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. You're right.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See RemixYogurt.com.
Hosting season's here. Are your windows guest ready? Early access to Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale is on now. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale early access now. Save up to 40% site-wide, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
And Todd, before we let you go, how does it change this classification of going after the cartels and gangs, listing them as foreign terrorist organizations? How does that give sort of law enforcement another tool? And to me, that's a long time coming when I think about, the ruthlessness of some of these cartels and how pervasive do you think Tren de Aragua and some of these other gangs are in the Americas? How big in the United States do you think it is in terms of members? We saw obviously the scene out at Scarface. It almost felt like an Aurora. But how pervasive do you think in the United States? How many members do you think Tren de Aragua or MS-13 is?
They're pervasive. They're in 17 different states. That's absurd that we let an ultra-violent, deadly, vicious gang right in over the borders at will. We just waved them all in, and they spread across the country and are preying on our people and have done horrible things to our people ever since then. And I think it's a great idea to designate them as an FTO, foreign terrorist organization. I can't wait to see what it's still too early, but I can't wait to see how they're going to use the FTO. But one thing that it does that I think is important is you have to remember that the Mexican cartels are not Mexican cartels anymore. They're global cartels. They are in 40 and 50 different countries around the world operating from Mexico. They're Mexicans operating in all these places. And that means that they've got global tentacles to banking systems and financial systems and property, and they have local operations and mini networks that are connected to, MINI, connected to bigger networks. And what an FTO will do is give us the authority to seize their assets, to shut down their bank accounts, to charge banks, financial institutions, anybody who's walking around with their money, moving their money around with terrorism charges, which can bring, 20-year prison sentences and et cetera, and even more. Some of those could even bring the death penalty on a material support charge if there's bodily injury involved. And so that's going to make a lot of people scamper away from anybody who works for a Mexican cartel, because then you are now at risk and it isolates them. So I'll be very interested to see, how that actually ends up being used in that way. But it's powerful. Those are very powerful tools.
Well, that is great to hear. By the way, everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Todd Bensman with the Center for Immigration Studies. This was really important. You had some great information. You do such great work and have spent a lot of time on the border, so you know it firsthand. And I think it just was eye-opening to have you with us today. Thank you so much, Todd, and thanks for all you do to keep America safe, too.
Thank you for all you do, too.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.
When you visit Arizona, time is measured in moments, not minutes. Like the moment you see the Grand Canyon for the first time. Visit a new state of mind. Learn more at hereyouareaz.com.